Hi, I'm Samantha Nolan-Smith. Thanks for joining me. This one's for anyone who's ever thought, I've got so many ideas and I have no idea where to start. They just all seem exciting and important, and how can I prioritize them? So there are a number of questions you can ask yourself which can help you to kind of work through the overwhelm that you can feel when you're the type of person who has lots of ideas coming through. And I can absolutely sympathize because I am one such person, and my tendency is to want to pursue them all. Let's start with a couple of questions you can ask yourself to pull it back from let's try and implement all 7 ideas right now to something that's more practical and sustainable. Which one can be implemented right now? This is such an obvious question, and yet it's something that we don't always allow to be the filter that makes our decisions for us. Sometimes it's as simple as, this one can be implemented now. Everything's here ready to go, so that's what I prioritize. We don't do that because we've got all of these other things that seem very, very exciting out there, and implementation seems a bit boring. But if you can take a moment to honor the idea beyond that initial honeymoon period, then that's where you get to the good stuff. So which one can be implemented now? The next question to ask is, which one really excites me? Now, when you're the kind of person that gets a lot of ideas in their head and really has trouble distinguishing between them, you're pretty naturally excited by ideas anyway. So the invitation here is to go beyond the level of the mind. So we can be very excited intellectually by something, but then what we want to do is ask ourselves, does it also make my heart sing? Sometimes we can be so fascinated by the idea of something, but wouldn't it be amazing if this and this and this and this and this? But when we really sit down with it and we say, is my heart in it? My heart says, no, not really. Yeah, it sounds fun, but my heart's not really in it for the long term. And your heart must be in it for the long term, because your heart is the thing that comes into play when you get into the implementation phase. Because the implementation phase is more mundane. It's not all of that exciting amp, ideas generation that happens early on in a project. It's the nuts and bolts of looking at the detail and getting it right. So if your heart's not in it at that stage, the idea kind of easily dissipates and you lose enthusiasm and motivation. Next question to ask: which of these am I pursuing because I think I should? So often, I see this a lot in the world that I operate in, which is the entrepreneurial world, where we see that this way of marketing or this kind of product or service, model of service delivery is working for somebody else, and we think, well, I should do that too. But we haven't stopped to ask ourselves, is this something that really will work to my strengths? So we have extroverts spending all their time online and trying to get things done that way, rather than being out in the world, talking to people, meeting people, which is their best possible way of growing their business and finding out what people really want, because that's their natural way of being. The next question you might consider is, does this really fall into the category of, it's a nice idea, but? What do I mean by a nice idea, but? There was certainly a time in my life where I'd get ideas through and I wouldn't really be discerning, because they all sounded good and they all had some benefit to the world. And I didn't want to drop any of the ideas because they had come to me. And for some reason, I thought that if they had come to me, I was responsible for them all. And so then I needed to implement them all. If it's just a nice idea, but again, no real passion here, it's not for you. It's come through you, but it's not for you. It's not there to stay. Perhaps it came to you because you're about to have a conversation with somebody for whom the idea is a far better fit. Perhaps it came to you because it's, the first piece of a much bigger idea. And that's just one tiny little component, and it's going to be tweaked to fit into a larger idea that you have that's brewing. If it's a nice idea, but it's not for you. So I want to talk a bit more about that thing of if it came to me, that idea, I have some obligation to the idea. You don't have an obligation to implement it. You have an obligation to make a decision about it. That's it. You either decide it's for me or it's not. And then that allows you to really honor the ideas that are left on the table. Rather than doing a kind of a half a job with 10 ideas, you can do a great job with 3. You have to let go of the good ideas in order to really have the time and the space for the great ideas. You don't want to keep yourself busy with all the little kind of good, nice ideas. You want to bring yourself down into what's the great idea and let me do that really, really well. The truth is that trying to keep 6 or 7 ideas, or however many for you, running at once is a form of not being able to commit. It's a fear of committing to one and then discovering that it's not actually going to deliver for you financially or in terms of what you hope to feel or experience from it. And so you've got 3 or 4 others just in case as backups. If you do the one and you do it well, you don't need a backup. We only ever need a backup when we haven't really committed to the one in the first place. So there's one other thing to remember with regard to ideas, and that is that they're all on different time spans. And for those of you who watch regularly, you'll remember the post that I did on Moss time and geological time and human time, and I'll include a link below for those who missed it. As it is for life lessons, so it is for projects, business projects, and any other sort of project. Some projects are on Moss time, so you're not going to see a lot, and then all of a sudden they're going to come to fruition. Other projects come to fruition and are implemented very, very quickly. So understanding that every idea doesn't need to be implemented today, that some are here and they're going to be nurtured over months, weeks, even years until they come to the right time for them. Others are here and they're ready to go now. I hope this has been helpful, and if you liked it, please share it with your friends and come over and subscribe at samanthanolan-smith.com, where there's a whole raft of discussion, tools and techniques about work life and spirituality. Thanks very much.